Good morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining NC Tech's Diversity Benchmark Initiative webinar to learn more about an important project that we are embarking on in partnership with the Diversity Movement, RacePoint Global, and Inclusion Analytics. I'm Michelle Kelton, and I'm excited to be kicking off today's call. NC Tech is the voice of North Carolina's thriving tech sector, and we are proud of the work that we do around the state in the areas of professional networks, government affairs, sector promotion, and talent development. With nearly 600 member companies and organizations from the mountains to the coast, NC Tech is your partner in growth. In 2015, we introduced our first annual research report, The State of the Tech Industry, which shows how North Carolina's tech sector stacks up against other states in many different areas. We added a refreshed monthly IT job trends report, and we released our first in what will be an annual tech innovation index comparing our state's metro areas to other metros around the country in the areas of tech talent supply, tech talent demand, and innovation. We are pleased to share with you today a new research initiative. It's a diversity benchmark, and in order for this to be impactful, we need your companies and organizations to participate. So I hope you will be as excited as NC Tech and our partners are to embark on this journey. We are thrilled to announce that SAS, one of North Carolina's biggest success stories, was our first company to sign on to participate in this project. Now I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Tracy Sternberg, to share a little bit about how we got here.
Thanks, Michelle. Diversity and inclusion programming has been part of NC Tech's calendar of events for many years, and that included hosting programming regionally. However, 2 years ago, we really wanted to increase our focus on this area, so we added our Diversity and Inclusion in Tech Summit to the lineup. This has been tremendously well received by our members, and we look forward to not only continuing to offer such opportunities, but also growing them year over year in an effort to move the needle in diversifying North Carolina's tech workforce and leadership. And that's what really started that was really the starting point of this initiative, because we knew we needed to better understand what moving the needle looked like. And there was no way of doing this without first establishing a baseline of where tech companies are in the development and execution of their own DE&I strategies. In partnering with the Diversity Movement and RacePoint Global on many events and activities throughout the years, we started talking about this project and how to make it come to fruition. We knew with the growth of North Carolina's tech sector, with announcements by such companies as Apple, Fidelity, Google, Microsoft, and many, many more, diversity, equity, and inclusion would be critical for tech companies to not only recruit and retain top talent, but also grow their bottom lines. At a recent conference of our counterparts, the tech associations and councils from across the country, I heard a presentation from Emily and Laura at Inclusion Analytics and thought that they would be the perfect partner to help us manage data collections and analysis aspects of this project. Even though they're in cold Nebraska, we're excited for the opportunity to work with them and welcome them to North Carolina. I'd now like to turn it over to Kurt Merriweather to share a bit about the diversity movement and their role in this partnership. Kurt?
Thank you, Tracy. My name is Kurt Merriweather. I'm the VP of Products and Innovation with the Diversity Movement, and our organization helps organizations add diversity, equity, and inclusion as a business imperative to the work that they already do. And we have a series and suite of employee experience applications to enable companies to do that and drive real world business outcomes from that work. And so one of the things that we've done with the NC Tech team over time is partnered together to help organizations realize the true benefits of diversity, equity, and inclusion. As we enter into 2022, one of the things that's important is to understand where you sit as an organization and how you can make progress no matter where you stand. And we're really excited and thrilled about the opportunity to partner with NC Tech to be able to do this work so organizations can have a true starting point and a baseline for where they stand, and then over time make progress based on the work that we've done together in helping to construct this opportunity with Inclusion Analytics as well as RacePoint Global. So we're really thrilled to be part of this group and coalition to offer this opportunity to you. And I'd like to hand over the baton to Stephanie Styons from RacePoint Global to talk about their role in this project as well.
Thanks, Kurt. Yes, we are thrilled to be here and Happy New Year to everybody. Here at RacePoint, we have an office in Raleigh as well as in many parts of the country. And we really focus on helping clients shape conversations that matter. Being in the communications industry and having folks talk about all these incredible topics to internal audiences as well as external, we know that DEI is one of those conversations that matter. And with that said, we could not be more thrilled to be a part of this group and be able to help everybody in being a part of this initiative. So I'll pass the baton again to Laura and Emily and have them tell you more about this initiative and what we would like to have you all join us with today.
Great, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're very happy to be with you. I'm Emily Adams, and together with Laura Brooks-Dooland, we co-founded Inclusion Analytics, where our vision is to create workplaces that work for all. We do this by focusing on data-driven diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, in the workplace. We use a series of assessments to collect data and help companies understand which DEI efforts are successful and which need retooling or greater support to have their intended impact. So today we'll spend some time talking about how participating in this process as a group delivers data that supports strategic problem solving. So as we get started, we'll just quickly review our plan for this talk. Given all the macro level changes we've seen in the past 2 years, it's important to first put DEI in context and understand how our assessments help your company leverage data for better people outcomes. We'll follow that by providing an overview of the content we cover in the assessments, and we'll close our presentation by reviewing what you can expect from engaging in this process. We'll have plenty of time at the end to address any questions that you might have. One question that we know is common among many organizations interested in this program is the security of their data. And I just want to assure you upfront that as a third-party vendor, Inclusion Analytics is the only one besides your company who gets to see your specific data. We'll aggregate the data in whole to help everybody make better decisions and learn from their peers, but nobody else will be able to see your company's data except you and us. So going back to these macro level forces, one we know is the Great Resignation, and so many are feeling the effects of it. Workers are leaving for a variety of work-life balance reasons, maybe poor company cultures, or a variety of other reasons. And we know that there are gaps in role coverage for organizations across the US. Just a couple months ago in November, alone 4.5 million workers quit their jobs. So this benchmarking study can help you understand your company's strengths, where your employees are satisfied, and where your peers might have a strategic advantage. This data can help you make better decisions to attract and retain talent. So looking at resignation data in greater detail can give us insights about how to mitigate risk. So we know the tech field has experienced dramatic increases in demands as people have embraced remote work and other virtual alternatives to in-person gatherings. Workers have certainly felt this increase in demand and are feeling burned out, as we can see by the 4.5% increase in turnover in the industry. Unfortunately, it's mid-career employees that are leaving their companies at the highest rates, about 20%. And these employees have a wealth of institutional knowledge and well-developed skills that are incredibly valuable to their employers. But this pattern doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. Gallup found almost half of surveyed employees indicated they're actively seeking new opportunities. So there's a variety of reasons for the increase in job searching, but not all employees' needs are the same. Our assessments help you target your efforts to be most effective by identifying which groups of employees might need greater support. Finally, 2020 presented a pair of macro-level forces that we are still seeing the effects of today: the coronavirus pandemic and the racial justice movements that were amplified after George Floyd's death. After his death, corporate silence on DEI matters were no longer acceptable, and as more companies publicly demonstrated their commitments to equity or failed to do so, Employees sought to work for companies whose practices aligned with their values. One measurable impact stemming from George Floyd's death is a shift in how companies talk about racism. Previously, we heard a lot about individual and hidden bias, but as you can see in this graph, corporations began discussing systemic racism far more frequently in the second quarter of 2020. This discussion shifts the focus from changing individual beliefs and actions to changing systems. And although companies cannot change individuals, they do have the ability to change the systems within their workplace. Our assessments target systems-level policies that impact the day-to-day lives of employees. We use data to direct companies to their next best step. When we think about why it's so important to use data to make well-informed decisions, we see that Dr. Laura Morgan Roberts and Megan Grayson said it well. Data provides an account of the current state, while goals establish the standards and metrics by which organizations demonstrate that they're becoming more inclusive, equitable, and representative. Without goals, leaders and organizations cannot hold themselves accountable to progress. At Inclusion Analytics, we believe DEI work is all about improvement over time, not the starting place. We can establish a baseline using data and track progress towards goals with follow-up measurements. Businesses that haven't started intentional DEI work and those that are mature in their DEI work both have opportunities to get better, but neither can demonstrate their successes if they don't measure their efforts. Our assessments give you data-driven opportunities to improve policies, and better support employee outcomes. So now that we've reviewed these macro-level forces making DEI a workplace imperative, next we'll give an overview of our assessments and talk about the types of DEI data that we leverage.
Wonderful, thanks, Emily. When we think about DEI data, we look at 4 topic areas. First, we examine demographics, or the diversity of the workforce. By doing so, we can see whether groups have different outcomes and different opportunities that are maybe not equitable across the entire organization. Policy reviews can identify barriers that may be holding back employees, customers, and partners, as well as potentially slowing business progress. Next, we like to look at employee perceptions to understand whether the company's policies and practices are impacting employees in the manner intended. And finally, we believe inclusion culture is critical for DEI success because employees experience company culture all day, every day. So next, we'll dig a little deeper into each of these areas. Demographic analyses can identify where inequities may exist and where there are opportunities for improvement in decision-making points, such as promotion or turnover. On the slide, we see that women make up about half of junior developers, but their representation decreases at each step up in the career ladder. This company might want to review promotion criteria or processes to understand if there are elements that influence women to be less likely to apply or result in women being less likely to be selected for promotions. In this segment of the policies assessment, we ask a business representative, likely an HR professional or team, to identify how many employees fit into different professional categories. For example, how many people of each gender are individual contributors, managers, and top leaders. The second quadrant of our DEI measurement circle is policies. We explore the presence of policies from 7 different categories. From the overall vision to the entire employee life cycle, companies can add policies or maybe even just make small tweaks to the existing policies to make them more inclusive. One policy that became common in 2020 and seems to be sticking around for a lot of organizations is a hybrid or remote work option. Although the remote work shift became popular to keep workers safe from COVID-19, sustained remote work options may have many benefits for other employees as well. So let's consider the example of a breastfeeding mother who may prefer to work from home to avoid cleaning pumping supplies in a lactation room, break room, or bathroom. Because of the convenience and time saved, She's likely to be even more productive working at home, in addition to feeling more comfortable. Maybe a company-wide remote work policy doesn't support your organization's needs. So perhaps a new benefit could be that new parents transitioning back to work could work remotely. In this segment of the policies assessment, the HR representative or team would indicate in a yes/no format whether the company has a variety of policies and practices formally documented and operating. Next, we measure employees' perceptions of organizational policies and practices. As policymakers, it's really easy to get caught up in what's on the books, but it's really difficult to keep up with what managers communicate to their individual teams. Using our prior example of a remote work arrangement, we see that our example business has a remote work policy indicated by the yellow check mark. It also appears that about half of their industry peers have this policy as well. However, when we assess employees from this organization, we see that almost half of them don't feel like they can utilize the remote work option. And looking at the detailed data, we see that genderqueer and Black employees are least likely to feel like they can work remotely. Clearly, the stated policy differs from employees' experiences. Therefore, it's really important to ask employees about their experiences to help leaders understand whether their policies are impacting employees in the way they intended. It can identify who may be benefiting from the policy and who may be falling through the cracks. In this segment of the people assessment, employees provide their experiences and workplace practices that correspond to the documented policies from the policy assessment. Finally, we recommend exploring your company's inclusion culture, which includes 4 critical elements: belonging, exclusion, fairness, and psychological safety. Belonging looks at whether employees feel they are valued and an important part of the company. Exclusion examines feelings of being left out, for example, of important meetings or maybe social functions. Fairness looks at whether employees believe the same rules apply to everyone equally. And finally, psychological safety is the feeling that an employee can speak up or disagree without being punished. Together, these 4 elements constitute an inclusive culture, and understanding employees' experiences in these 4 areas allows leaders to develop or perhaps better communicate policies and programs to ensure the workplace is an inclusive and welcoming place for all. So for our assessment summaries, the policies and practice assessment consists of 2 primary parts: demographic breakdowns of employees overall and by level, also questions that are focused on policies that are currently established in your organization. Concurrently, your employees will be completing People and Perceptions Assessment, which measures employees' perceptions of the policies and company's inclusion culture. Employees should expect to spend less than 10 minutes on this assessment. We'll wrap up our presentation by reviewing the process for completing the assessments. In order to participate, we have the following expectations for each organization. First, we need an accessible point person at your organization that we will provide links to, keep updated on participation rates, and deliver the final reports to. We ask the organizations to complete the assessments within the allotted timeframe, and an inclusion analytic representative will be available to answer any questions necessary during that time. We really like to see a participation rate of around 70% of employees to ensure that we have a representative sample. So we ask that organizations frequently communicate with their employees, encouraging them to participate. And then finally, payment to NC Tech is due based on membership status, which the NC Tech individuals will be able to help you figure out. Each participating business can expect multiple deliverables that will support decision-making and DEI growth. We provide data summaries for quick insights and detailed data for companies that are ready to really dig in. Each business will receive a maturity model based on their policies that include suggested next steps. By participating as an association, businesses will have access to industry comparisons to understand where they lead and where their peers excel. We can only include these comparisons when we have enough businesses to participate so that we can aggregate at a high level and make sure that no one can pick out anyone else. So please encourage your peers to join. These deliverables integrate organization level data and employee level data to provide deeper understandings of how intentions translate to employee experience. Likewise, NC Tech will receive multiple deliverables to facilitate concrete next steps. The association will receive aggregate data that visualizes strengths and opportunities for the group. We really want to reiterate here, they will not be able to see your business's results separately, only at a high level with other businesses aggregated. They can use this aggregate data to develop programming and invest resources that support the greatest number of businesses based on gaps identified. And finally, demographic data aggregated across businesses can be used to forecast future opportunities. Finally, we want to review the overall timeline for completion of the project. We're currently in phase 1, where we're educating and helping people understand the process, answering any questions to make sure everyone feels comfortable. Registration is already open for businesses who would like to participate and will close mid-January. Phase 2 is the launch of the assessments. Both business representatives and employees will have the opportunity to participate. And finally, in phase 3, we will analyze the data and prepare reports. At this point, association-wide communication of the group level data will go out. And finally, each member business will receive their customized reports. So that's the end of our prepared material. We'd love to spend the remaining time together answering any questions you might have about the process.
Thank you so much, Emily and Laura. As you can see, this is an exciting project, but also an important one as North Carolina becomes a bigger player in the tech landscape. We hope you'll consider participating, and we are able to take questions through Q&A. I'll start with the first one here. There's a question on, will you provide templates we can leverage to communicate to employees?
Yeah, absolutely. Once businesses are signed up, we can provide some suggested communications to employees to help them understand the value in participating, what their estimated time commitment will be, and really to encourage them to join.
Okay. There's a question on US only or global employees?
Yep, and so this project is running through NC Tech, and so we're really looking to get comparison data for employees based in North Carolina. So that's our target audience, is those employees who are based in North Carolina.
There's a question in the chat. Is there a response rate requirement for an organization?
Yeah, so Laura mentioned we like to see as high as we can get for participation for the people and perceptions assessment. There is no requirement. The participation rate will influence the level of detail that we're able to return to you in the data. If we are able to say this is how female employees felt about this question, this is how male employees felt, and that this is how genderqueer employees felt, we will certainly give those breakdowns so you can understand your data and your employees a little better and target your efforts more specifically. But if there's a lower participation rate, then we don't want to presume that we have accurate data that speaks for your entire company if we only have about 20% of employees responding. So there's no minimum required. The participation rate just influences how detailed of data we can return to you.
Another question from a guest. We have another third-party vendor who conducts our annual DEI survey. Have you had other companies participate who are already conducting a survey? Were there or are there any conflicts or issues?
Yeah, so we definitely come across this. And I think one of the most important things is timing. What is best for your organization? We can work with businesses individually, but obviously it's great to participate as a group through NC Tech so you can get those industry comparisons. So if it's feasible to conduct this during the timeframe that we have open, January 31st to February 18th, that would be great. And you get even more data to help you understand your standing compared to your peers in the tech sector. But we certainly understand that employees' time is valuable. They have many things on their plates, and that surveys are not the only things going on. So if you're interested in doing this type of work at a different time of year, we'd be happy to chat with you about this. But there certainly are benefits to participating as a group during this time window.
Please note that we plan for this to be an annual benchmark. Obviously, we want to get as many companies on this first year, the launch year, but also keep that in mind. There's a question in the chat. There's a company that's doing an annual employee engagement survey in April. Could we still participate with the employee section during that time frame or stick with your phase timeline?
Yeah, so for this project, we decided that the goal was to share these results at an in-person conference in March. So we're hoping to have all of our data collected and ready to kind of share publicly at the aggregate level by the end of March. So we're kind of locked in on this time frame right now.
Okay. Would it be possible for one of the companies to participate with the policies portion during the time frame and then execute on the questions engaged in the employee survey assessment at a later time?
Yeah, we can definitely make that happen.
I see one question about how to sign up, and Tracy has put the link in the chat. It's a very easy online form. As soon as you sign up, we'll be in touch with you. There will be a call scheduled at the end of the month, optional, but for all the companies that sign up to participate, we'll have an opportunity to be on a call to ask questions of Laura and Emily, just a designated time frame to do that. Are there any other questions? Okay, we will follow up to this call with some important links, including the recorded version of this call, the link to the Diversity Benchmark Initiative webpage, which includes the link to sign up to participate in the benchmark. If you have other individual questions or want to talk further with our team, we would be glad to have a one-on-one conversation. So please follow up with us on that. And again, we encourage you to consider participating in this launch benchmark. And we are looking forward to learning more about some of the results that we'll be able to share at our Diversity and Inclusion in Tech Summit in late March. Thank you all for joining the call today. Have a great rest of your week.